After 3 miserable months training my replacements, my team lead told me I wasn't needed anymore, so I quit on the spot. 32 days later, the CEO showed up at my door at 11 p.m., desperate. What collapsed in those 32 days was everything. I was sitting in a windowless conference room in downtown Cleveland, staring at the woman who just told me I didn't exist anymore. 7 minutes, she said, sliding a glossy folder across the table like it was evidence in a murder case. That's how long the executive council discussed your termination before voting. Unanimous? Her name was Dana Mercer, VP of Operations. Sharp suit, sharper tongue. She smiled like she was doing me a favor. To her right sat my direct supervisor, Calvin Dorn, eyes glued to the floor, his left knee bouncing so hard the table vibrated. My throat tightened. Dana, I'm halfway through the transition. I'm still training the new team. You said. You've done enough, she cut in. Our metrics show the associates you trained reached 89% efficiency, which means we no longer need your salary level. She tapped the folder. Your severance package. I blinked. 3 months. 3 months of 16-hour days. 3 months of training 6 brand new analysts. 3 months of dumping 10 years of specialized knowledge into their open, clueless notebooks. And now I was obsolete. Calvin finally forced himself to look at me. His voice cracked. The company had to pivot fast, Lena. The market shifted. It wasn't personal. I laughed, low, humorless. It never is, right? A security guard appeared in the doorway. They didn't even pretend it was optional. I stood, refusing to let my hands shake. I grabbed only my notebook, my lifeline for a decade, and walked out without saying anything else. Dana didn't even look up from her phone. 10 years gone in 7 minutes. The guard escorted me through the lobby like I was radioactive. Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright, too warm, like the world had the nerve to keep going. As I waited for my rideshare, my phone buzzed nonstop, messages from the team I'd built, the team I'd practically raised. Lena, where are you? We can't get the Edwards file to run. Can we hop on a call? Something's breaking. I turned the phone off. I needed silence. I needed space. I needed air. What I didn't know, what I couldn't know then, was that what happened next wouldn't just be a professional collapse. It would expose secrets that had nothing to do with market shifts and everything to do with people who had been plotting around me for months. People I trusted. People who used me. People who really thought I'd just disappear. That night I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the termination folder. I hadn't opened it. I didn't need to. 2 months of severance wasn't worth the insult. My apartment felt too quiet, too small. My thoughts spun like a broken fan. I kept replaying Dana's smirk, Calvin's trembling hands, the guard shadowing me like I was going to steal office supplies out of spite. I went to bed sick to my stomach. At 2:13 a.m., a pounding knock jolted me awake. 3 knocks, hard, urgent. I stumbled to the door, heart racing, and looked through the peephole. It was Calvin, in the middle of the night. Sweating, breathless, terrified. Lena, he whispered, looking over his shoulder like someone had followed him. Please open the door. I need to explain what's really going on. They didn't fire you because you cost too much. He leaned closer. They fired you because you found something you weren't supposed to see. My hand froze on the lock. He swallowed hard. And they think you told someone. I didn't open the door right away. Calvin's voice was shaky, desperate, so unlike the careful, by-the-book manager I'd worked under for almost 5 years. I finally turned the lock, but only halfway, leaving the chain on. Talk, I said. He pushed a hand through his hair, pacing outside my door like a man ready to break apart. Not here, please, can I come in just for 5 minutes? I studied him through the small gap. His tie was crooked. His shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were red like he hadn't slept in days. Or weeks. This wasn't the Calvin who used to scold interns for using the wrong font in reports. Something was wrong. I undid the chain and let him in. The moment he stepped inside, he collapsed onto my couch, head in his hands. I didn't sit. I didn't trust him enough for that. Not yet. He finally whispered, Lena, you don't understand how deep this goes. My heartbeat picked up, but I kept my voice steady. So explain it. He nodded slowly, gathering himself. I will. But to understand what's happening now, you need to know what was happening long before today. And just like that, everything slid backward in my mind. Years of small moments I'd brushed off as nothing, times I should have paid closer attention, conversations I'd forgotten until now. back before everything snapped. I joined Northland Systems 10 years ago, fresh out of grad school and desperate for any job that didn't involve part-time retail and cheap coffee. I'd grown up in Parma, a suburb outside Cleveland where most people worked blue-collar jobs and every winter felt like a punishment. I wanted something different, something stable, something that would make my parents stop worrying about me. I started as a junior process analyst, which is a fancy way of saying I color-coded spreadsheets and tried not to break anything. Over time, I turned into the person everyone came to when they were stuck. Why? Because I listened. Because I didn't treat problems like disasters. Because I remembered the tiny details nobody else bothered with. Within 4 years, I knew Northland's systems better than anyone. Not because I was some genius, because I paid attention to the things people ignored. That's how I met Calvin. Back then, he wasn't my supervisor. He was just a quiet, stiff manager who had a nervous habit of tapping his pen. But he noticed that I'd saved several client accounts from collapsing because of tiny oversights other departments missed. He started asking me to sit in on meetings, to lend insight, to give opinions I didn't realize had any weight. Before long, everyone was treating me like the unofficial fixer. I should have been promoted. I wasn't. Instead, they gave me expanded responsibilities and a thank you email. I swallowed the disappointment because I needed the job, because I believed loyalty mattered. Then, 2 years ago, everything changed. Our department landed the Edwards Diagnostics account, one of the most high-pressure, high-value contracts Northland had ever handled. It could have doubled our revenue or destroyed us if it went wrong. Everyone panicked. Everyone except me. I built the entire operational framework that kept the account running. I mapped every dependency, every bottleneck, every risk point. No one else, not Calvin, not Dana, not the 6 analysts they brought in later, understood that system like I did. That was why I worked 16-hour days, why I skipped vacations, why my doctor warned me my blood pressure could put me in the ER. I thought I was doing all of it for the good of the company. But now, standing over Calvin, watching him unravel on my couch at 2 in the morning, I felt a cold stab of dread in my stomach. Because of the way he looked at me, like I'd been walking straight toward something dangerous for years without realizing it. He lifted his head, eyes full of guilt and something I hadn't expected. Fear. "Lena," he said slowly, voice breaking, "you weren't fired because you were replaceable. You were fired because you weren't supposed to notice the discrepancies in the Edwards reports." I froze. "What discrepancies?" I asked. He took a shaking breath. "The ones I covered up." He looked me dead in the eyes. "And the ones Dana profited from." The room went silent. Then he whispered, "You were getting too close." I stood there staring at Calvin, my mind stuck between anger and disbelief. "You need to start talking," I said. "All of it, right now." He nodded, rubbing his trembling hands together like he was trying to wash off something that wouldn't come off. "It started about 18 months ago," he croaked. "Dana came to me with a proposal, said Northland was bleeding money, said we needed creative solutions." I crossed my arms. "Creative like what you did to the Edwards account," he winced. "It wasn't supposed to be fraud," he whispered. "At first, it was just shifting numbers, smoothing over delays, reclassifying certain expenses as research expenditures so they could be written off. Everyone does that in our industry. But then Edwards Diagnostics started making demands we couldn't meet. I remembered those months vividly, tight deadlines, last-minute changes, the feeling that someone was always hiding something from me. "So you lied to them," I said, voice flat. He nodded. "And when did it turn into money disappearing?" His eyes shot up. "You saw the missing cost centers?" I didn't answer. My silence was enough. Calvin's shoulders sagged. "I knew it. I told Dana those logs weren't meant for you. She said you wouldn't notice, but you always notice." I sat down slowly, trying to keep my breathing steady. "Tell me exactly what the 2 of you did." He flinched at the word "you," like he couldn't bear being grouped with her, but he didn't correct me. "Dana set up a shell vendor," he said quietly. "A fake consulting firm. She routed tiny charges into that vendor from several projects, including Edwards. Nothing huge, nothing that would raise red flags, but after a year, it added up." My stomach dropped. "How much?" I demanded. He hesitated, then whispered, $864,000. I felt the room tilt. Almost $1 million. 1 million stolen from accounts I worked myself sick to keep stable. And you helped her, I said. He looked like he might vomit. She said it wouldn't hurt anyone. She said it was temporary. That she'd move the funds back when the next fiscal cycle hit. But then Edwards started questioning delays and discrepancies. And the only reason the account didn't implode was you. I shook my head in disbelief. So you let me break my back covering for you. His voice cracked. I begged Dana to bring you in. She refused. She said you were too principled. Too honest, you'd ruin everything. And the training program, I asked. He swallowed. That wasn't about expanding the department. That was about creating 6 people they could blame if things blew up. The plan was to phase you out quietly. My chest tightened. So firing me wasn't a market shift. No, he whispered. It was insurance. A cold, crawling anger spread through me. Why are you here, Calvin? I asked. Why come to my apartment in the middle of the night? He looked up with hollow eyes. Because everything is falling apart, Lena, and Dana is panicking. Edwards requested a full financial audit this morning. They're digging through every report from the past 2 years. He swallowed hard. They're going to find the shell vendor. They're going to find the altered numbers. And Dana, she's planning to pin the entire thing on you. I froze. What? I whispered. He nodded, tears threatening. She already handed over modified access logs to the compliance team. Logs that show the discrepancies came from your login. My blood ran cold. That's impossible, I said. I didn't touch those entries. Calvin looked at me with a kind of broken shame. I know, he whispered, because I'm the one who forged your credentials. The world stopped. My pulse hammered in my ears. You framed me, I said, and then even quieter, why? He closed his eyes. That's why I came. Because Dana told me what she's planning next. And trust me, you need to hear it before she makes her move. He took a shaky breath. Lena, she doesn't think you're just a problem. He looked at me with absolute terror. She thinks you're a threat. Calvin's words hung in the air like the room had suddenly dropped 20 degrees. A threat, not incompetent, not replaceable, a threat. I stared at him, trying to make sense of it. Why would Dana see me as a threat? I don't have power. I don't have access to money. I don't have. You have the one thing she can't buy, he whispered. Credibility. I was speechless. Lena, everyone trusts you, he said, voice cracking. Edwards, the internal audit team. Legal. Senior leadership. You've been their fixer for years, their safety net, their guarantee that Northland wouldn't collapse. I sank into the chair across from him, my hands numb. Calvin looked away, ashamed. Dana realized last year that if anything ever went wrong with the Edwards account, they'd go to you first, and you'd tell the truth. My chest tightened. That's it, I said, incredulous. She was willing to destroy my career because I'd answer questions honestly. It's bigger than that. He ran a shaking hand over his face. She's been planning to move up for a long time, CFO maybe higher. But the Edwards contract is the backbone of the company. If it fails, her entire ladder collapses. And once you started noticing discrepancies in the reports, I didn't notice anything, I snapped. I saw one missing cost center last week and assumed it was an error. He shook his head. That was enough. Dana freaked, said you were digging, said you had to go. I felt sick. So she set up a fake promotion program, I whispered. Had me train the replacements. Then fired me to remove the only person who understood the system well enough to see what she'd done. He nodded. But forging access logs, I said. You could go to prison for that. He looked at me broken, exhausted, ruined. And then he said the thing that turned my stomach inside out. I didn't do it voluntarily. My jaw tightened. What does that mean? He took a deep, shaky breath. Dana has leverage on me. I narrowed my eyes. What leverage? He opened his mouth to answer, but suddenly stopped. His eyes darted toward my window. A black SUV idled outside. The engine was running, the headlights were off. Calvin's whole body tensed. No, he whispered. She wouldn't send them this fast. Send who? I asked, heart pounding. He didn't look away from the window. Dana hired a private security firm last year, off the books. They call themselves compliance escorts. But they're not compliance. They're cleanup. I swallowed hard. Cleanup of what? He finally looked at me, eyes full of something I'd never seen on him before, real fear. People, he said. They clean up people. A cold wave rolled through me. You're saying she's sending them for me? Calvin shook his head, panic rising. No, she's sending them for me. I wasn't supposed to tell you anything, and if she thinks I'm flipping, his breath hitched. She'll silence me before morning. I moved toward the window, but he grabbed my arm violently. Don't, he hissed. If they see you, you're next. My heart pounded in my ears. We need to call the police. His laugh cracked in his throat. You think the Cleveland PD is going to interfere with Dana Mercer? She funnels money into every political fund within 20 miles. She owns half the people who could help us. I stared at him, realization sinking like a stone. Dana wasn't just a corrupt corporate executive. She was dangerous, calculated, protected, and willing to destroy anyone who threatened her. The SUV engine cut. The headlights flicked on. Someone stepped out of the passenger side, tall, dark coat, earpiece, gloved hands. Calvin's voice dropped to a whisper. They're here. And if you don't leave this apartment now, you won't get another chance. Calvin was shaking so hard I thought he might pass out. Outside, the SUV door shut with a soft, deliberate thud, the kind that didn't need to be loud to be threatening. I pulled him away from the window. Back up, sit down, breathe. He collapsed onto the couch again, clutching his stomach like he was physically sick. His eyes kept darting toward the door. Lena, you don't understand. Those people don't knock, they don't negotiate, they remove problems. I crouched in front of him. Calvin, listen to me. If they're here for you, they already know the building. They know where you live, they know your schedule. So why send them here tonight? He blinked rapidly. Because I broke protocol, I wasn't supposed to talk to you. I shook my head slowly. No, Dana didn't expect you to talk to me at all. What? Firing me was supposed to scare me. Make me disappear quietly. It was supposed to make everyone disappear quietly. Calvin stared at me, confused, terrified, unraveling. Think, I whispered. If she really believed I discovered something, she would have taken my access the moment I walked out. She wouldn't leave loose ends. She wouldn't let me walk around with 10 years of operational knowledge in my head. And she definitely wouldn't let you run around panicking. Calvin swallowed. So then why? A muffled voice sounded outside my door, footsteps, moving slowly, controlled, not knocking, listening. I lowered my voice even more. Because this isn't about you breaking protocol. This is about her losing control. Someone higher up must have started asking questions she didn't expect. His eyes widened. The Edwards audit? Exactly. She's cornered. Cornered people do stupid things. Footsteps paused right outside my door. Calvin's hands clenched into fists. Lena, we need to get out of here. No, I said firmly. We need to be smart. I grabbed my phone and quietly turned on the voice recorder. I didn't know if I could trust Calvin, but I knew Dana was terrified of documentation. I held the phone near him. Tell me everything about the shell vendor. Names, dates, every report you altered, every directive Dana gave you, every person she blackmailed. His voice trembled. You're recording this? Yes, we could both die for this. I nodded. Or we could use it. He hesitated. Then something hardened in his expression, resolve maybe, or guilt finally tipping into self-preservation. He leaned forward and whispered names, dates, accounts. The exact shell company Dana created, Norwood Strategic Holdings. The falsified expense codes, the manipulated vendor approvals, the employees she threatened with demotions, the executives she bribed, the forged login trails he created under her orders. He talked for 5 minutes straight. When he stopped, he looked emptied out, pale, shaking. What now? He asked. I stood and moved silently to my coat closet. I pulled down an old metal lockbox, my late father's. Inside were the things I never left unsecured. Copies of my certifications, backup IDs, a burner phone from an old security project, and a flash drive containing my personal logs from the Edwards account. Logs I'd kept for my own sanity, never thinking they'd matter. I tossed Calvin the burner phone. Use this, not your number. He stared at it like it was a weapon. Then I took out the flash drive and slipped it into my pocket. Calvin swallowed hard. Where are you going? I grabbed my bag and zipped it. To people who don't answer to Dana, people who don't owe her anything. Who? He whispered. I opened my apartment door just an inch, only to find the hallway empty. The SUV engine rumbled downstairs. I turned back to him. Edwards, I said quietly. If they're auditing Northland, they're already suspicious. And if they hear what you just told me, they'll tear the company apart brick by brick. Calvin shook his head, terrified. Edwards will bury this. They'll settle quietly. You don't understand how much money is involved. Oh, I understand. I stepped fully into the hallway. He called after me, voice cracking, Lena, they'll come after you next. I looked over my shoulder. Good, I said. Let them. I'm done playing defense. The elevator dinged in the distance. Downstairs, the SUV engine cut out again. They were coming back up. I took a deep breath. Time to make my move. The elevator doors slid open with a soft metallic sigh somewhere below. I pressed myself against the wall outside my apartment, listening. Calvin stayed inside, frozen on my couch, waiting for doom to knock. I whispered through the crack of the door, when they get up here, don't talk, don't open the door, don't move. Lena, he choked. I'm not letting you die, I said. Not tonight. I didn't wait for a reply. I sprinted down the opposite end of the hallway, hitting the stairs, taking them two at a time. My heart hammered in my throat, adrenaline burning hot and sharp. On the third-floor landing, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me swipe open. The voice on the other end wasn't Calvin, wasn't Dana, wasn't anyone I expected. Lena, it's Iris Keene. I froze mid-step. Iris Keene. Director of Internal Compliance. One of the few people in Northland with real authority and a brutal reputation for exposing corruption. She was brilliant, meticulous, terrifying. And she never, ever contacted employees directly unless something catastrophic was unfolding. What? I stammered. How did you get my number? I've been trying to reach you all day. Her tone was sharp, clipped, like she was slicing through words. Dana reported that you were refusing to cooperate with the ongoing audit. My pulse spiked. That's a lie. Yes, she said simply. It is. Silence, heavy, loaded. What do you want from me? I whispered. I want the truth, she replied. All of it. I hesitated. Something about her voice wasn't right. Too controlled, too level, like she was reading from a script. Why now? I asked. Her reply was immediate. Because Edwards contacted us directly. Because they submitted an escalation report listing you as a potential obstruction. And because Dana Mercer provided us with access logs indicating you altered financial entries. My blood chilled. Those logs are fake. I know, Iris said. That's why I need you to come in immediately. I stopped walking entirely. What? You heard me. Bring whatever evidence you have. Come to the downtown office tonight. The downtown office. The one that was closed at night. The one that required special permission to access. The one where cameras malfunctioned more often than they should. A slow, cold suspicion crept up my spine. This wasn't right. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't Iris Keene. Prove you're really Iris, I said. A pause, then, I don't have time for games, Lena. If you want to avoid criminal charges, you'll come here now. You are already deeply, I hung up. My legs started to shake. Because I finally understood what felt off. Iris Keene didn't threaten people. She dismantled them quietly. Whoever had called me wasn't Iris. Someone had cloned her number. Someone had access to the compliance directory. Someone who knew I would panic if internal compliance reached out. Someone who needed me alone. Someone like Dana. I backed against the stairwell wall, breathing hard. Then another buzz, a text, from the same number. We know Calvin is with you. If you cooperate, he walks away clean. If you don't. A second message came instantly, a photo this time. My building, my floor, my hallway. And standing in front of my apartment door, the same man who had stepped out of the SUV. My vision blurred for a second before snapping into razor focus. This wasn't just about covering fraud, wasn't just about money. Dana wasn't cleaning up an accounting mess. She was trying to erase anyone who could expose her, and I had just led her right to Calvin. I took off up the stairs, sprinting. I didn't have a plan. Not yet. But I had a flash drive, a burner phone, a terrified whistleblower, and a woman powerful enough to make people vanish. And now I knew one more thing. Dana wasn't acting alone. Because someone inside internal compliance was helping her. And whoever that person was, they wanted me next. I burst back onto my floor so fast I nearly slipped. Calvin was still on my couch, white, shaking, listening for footsteps. When he saw my face, he stood abruptly. What happened? Who was that? I locked the door, breathing hard. Someone pretending to be internal compliance. Someone inside Northland helping Dana. Calvin's face drained of color. Oh God! The lights in my hallway flickered, the building's old wiring, but the timing made my stomach twist. I moved fast. We're leaving, now. Calvin grabbed his coat with shaky hands. Where do we go? Somewhere she can't control, somewhere with cameras she doesn't own, somewhere public. But as I checked the peephole, the hallway was empty. The SUV, the photo, the call, Dana wasn't sending a warning. She was hunting us. I pulled Calvin close. Tell me everything you know about who she's working with right now. He looked down, ashamed. He swallowed, eyes darting, like saying it aloud might summon something. Dana wasn't stealing money for herself. For a moment, that didn't compute. What are you talking about? She funneled almost $1 million. He cut me off. Shaking his head. No, her accounts would show nothing unusual. The money never touched her personally. A cold dread washed over me. Then who did it go to? He hesitated, but only for a second. Her sister, he whispered. Serena, I frowned. I didn't even know she had a sister. That's because no one's supposed to know. Serena Mercer used to work in biotech. She got caught in an ethics scandal 2 years ago, data manipulation, falsifying safety reports, accusations of bribery. Edwards Diagnostics flagged her, blacklisted her from the entire industry. My stomach sank. So Edwards was the enemy. Calvin nodded miserably. Dana blamed them for destroying Serena's life, said they humiliated her, said they made an example of her because she didn't have the right connections. A fog of horror started to settle in my mind. So she, what? Decided to bankrupt Edwards in retaliation? Calvin looked up slowly. No, Lena. Not bankrupt them. Then he said it softly, like the words themselves terrified him. She wanted to destabilize them, quietly, slowly, make them doubt their own internal controls, make investors nervous, make leadership look incompetent. She wanted to rot them from the inside. I stared at him. That's why she created the shell vendor, he continued. Not just to skim money, but to create untraceable irregularities. Deviations that looked like internal sabotage. My throat tightened. So when Edwards audited Northland, she expected them to find red flags, Calvin said. She wanted them to panic, to make rash decisions, to look corrupt. She set them up to take the fall. I felt sick. But then, he continued, eyes dropping, you stabilized the entire account. You cleaned every mess. Every discrepancy that was supposed to hurt them, you eliminated. My pulse hammered. You weren't supposed to succeed, he whispered. Your competence became a liability. A cold chill ran through me. That's why she fired me, I murmured. Because I kept preventing the damage she needed. And once you found the missing cost center, Calvin's voice shook. She realized you might uncover everything. I pressed a hand against the wall to steady myself. Dana was never afraid I'd expose fraud, I whispered. She was afraid I'd expose her sabotage. Calvin nodded, tears forming. She's been plotting for 2 years, he said. And now Edwards is doing a full audit, the exact thing she's been engineering. But if they talk to you, if they see your email chains, your logs, your work history, they'll realize none of the irregularities were yours. And they'll follow the trail to her, I said. He nodded. That's why she framed you. That's why she sent her people. That's why she's desperate enough to clone Iris's number. I sank onto the arm of my couch, the weight of it all crushing down on me. Dana Mercer didn't just betray me. She didn't just fire me. She spent 2 years building a trap. And now she needed me gone for it to spring cleanly. Calvin's voice cracked behind me. Lena, she's trying to ruin an entire company to avenge her sister. No, I said, standing slowly. My voice was ice. She's trying to ruin too. By the time the realization settled, that Dana Mercer was willing to destroy 2 companies just to avenge her sister, I felt something settle in me too. A kind of cold clarity I'd never felt before. Fear evaporated, panic faded, everything sharpened. Dana wanted me cornered, silent, isolated, so the only logical move was to do the opposite. I grabbed Calvin by the sleeve. We're leaving, now, he stumbled after me. Where? To the one place Dana can't spin, threaten, or bury us. Where the hell is that? I hit the stairwell door with my shoulder. The Edwards Diagnostics headquarters. Calvin froze on the landing. Are you insane? It's almost midnight. Exactly, I said. No executives, no Dana-friendly intermediaries, just one department still active, the overnight clinical operations team. He stared. You think they'll listen? I held up the flash drive. I think they'll care more about truth than anyone Dana owns. We slipped out through the back of my building, avoiding the SUV. I kept my head down, hoodie up. Calvin looked like he might collapse from fear or guilt, or both, but he kept moving. We caught a rideshare to the Edwards Tower in Beechwood. The building was lit only on the lower floors. Emergency lights glowed inside like faint blue ghosts. Perfect. Inside, the night security guard barely glanced at us when I flashed my old Northland badge. Corporate alliances made me invisible in all the right ways. A woman in scrubs sat behind the desk, exhausted eyes but alert posture. Probably on her fourth cup of coffee, she looked up. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, pulling the flash drive from my pocket. "You really can." I explained everything, not with drama, not with fear, but with the same precision I used to save broken systems for a decade. The shell vendor, the forged logs, the manipulation, the sabotage, the escalation attempts. Dana's attempt to frame me and erase Calvin. Every detail backed by timestamps and documentation. The woman listened with growing horror. Then she sat silently for a few seconds and picked up the phone. 2 minutes later, the overnight lead reg officer, Dr. Nia Halberg, arrived. A woman with sharp eyes and no patience for corporate games. She reviewed the data, asked 3 pointed questions, then told Calvin to sit down before he passed out. Then she said the words that told me I'd finally chosen the right battlefield. "Everything you just gave me goes directly to our federal liaison, effective immediately," Calvin whimpered. I exhaled for the first time in an hour. By dawn, hell broke loose. Not for me, for Dana. Because the first people Edwards contacted were not Northland's senior leadership. They notified the SEC, the OIG, and the state attorney general, all before sunrise. At 8:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. "You think this saves you?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because at 8:44 a.m., news alerts exploded across Cleveland. Northland Systems CFO placed on leave pending federal investigation. Anonymous whistleblower triggers multi-agency probe into contract irregularities. Edwards Diagnostics confirms data integrity concerns. And then, a name. Dana's, plastered everywhere. By noon, she was suspended. By evening, her home was being raided. By the next morning, every executive who had quietly supported her was combing through lawyers like cheap napkins. Calvin turned himself in, fully cooperating. With the evidence I provided, they labeled him key witness, not suspect. As for me, internal compliance, the real one asked me to lead a corrective operations task force for Edwards. 6-month contract, triple my old salary, complete autonomy. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Because for the first time in years, my work wouldn't be used to protect corrupt people. It would be used to fix damage done by them. 2 weeks later, when the dust settled, I got a single envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Dana's handwriting. "You destroyed everything." I smiled. For the first time, genuinely. Because the truth was simple. I didn't destroy anything. She did. I just made sure everyone finally saw it.